What's up, guys? My name is Ben, also known as Exxon Salinas. Thank you very much for tuning into the YouTube channel. Again, today, the video I have for you today is actually going to be a little bit different from what I usually do. Most of you that know me know that in October of 2010, I believe, every day I would send out a text message to all of my friends containing a rant of sorts, and every day it would be about something different. I have noticed in my young life that ranting is actually one of the things that I do best. And there's something I've been wanting to rant about for a long time. And it's actually one of my favorite video games in the entire world, made by one of my favorite developers in the entire world. And you may have heard me talk about it before, but it is the Blizzard game World of Warcraft. Now, I want it to be said, I love World of Warcraft. I always have loved it, I always will love it, and it's just a fun game to play. But I have a couple of problems with it. When World of Warcraft first came out, it was a massively multiplayer online role-playing game experience for all ages to play. It was fun, it was huge, it was expansive, it had a huge fan base. The sky was the limit on where it seemed to be going. A couple of years after Vanilla WoW came out, they came out with their first expansion pack, Burning Crusade, which implemented huge numbers of just new content, two new races, an entire new world, which essentially doubled the size of the playing area that the players could explore. It introduced a new hub town for both factions, both Horde and Alliance. They could go to the same place and not have to worry about players ganking each other all the time. It actually introduced two new factions just to mix up the formula even more. It also introduced flying mounts, which was something that was unheard of. Flying was just something that players had dreamed about for a long time, and it was awesome. It increased the level cap by 10 levels, which was amazing. It just introduced huge numbers of new content and new experiences for players to experience. Soon after the conclusion of Burning Crusade, the next expansion came out, Wrath of the Lich King, which did another boost to the level cap, another 10 levels to level 80. It introduced a new continent to go to, Northrend. It introduced a new class, the Death Knights, which was again something unheard of. The graphics were improved in Lich King, which was a huge thing. Players were challenged by new types of bosses that weren't just merely tank and spank experiences, and it was basically just an all-around great expansion. The next expansion that came out, I feel, was where the curve slightly just started going down a bit. It crested the hill and just started to descend. Which was Cataclysm. It boosted the level cap by only 5 up to 85, and it focused primarily on the lower levels. I will, however, say that the idea to completely change up every single lower level area and just completely change up the canon was a great idea. For years, the old starting areas were becoming bland, and players were turned off by the idea of starting new characters because they didn't want to have to go through the same campaigns over and over and over that they had been going through for years. And so it was a great idea to mix that up, throw in a little spice every now and then and especially for the kids, the younger players who weren't getting to max level and, playing endgame content every night with their guilds. That was fine. That was a great idea. Cataclysm also introduced two new races, the Goblins and the Worgen, which I thought was a little bit contrived. The Goblins at this point were highly known for their neutrality in the Horde and Alliance conflict, and the Worgens, I suppose, were long overdue based on lore. Now, it's important to point out that all three expansions up to this point were all based on prior lore and World of Warcraft canon. They were all based off of other things that had happened prior to even World of Warcraft itself. Blizzard's award-winning real-time strategy trilogy, Warcraft, was an amazing experience for players. A lot of people loved it. And by taking those and their expansions and implementing those into their new MMORPG, that was a great idea, both for people who were just wanting to get a good thrill out of an RPG and for those of us, like myself, who loved the lore of the game. For those of you who don't know, World of Warcraft has a massive backstory. It is a world. It has hundreds upon thousands of different characters and backstories, and they're all intertwining together. A lot of people don't know this. And all the expansions up to Cataclysm were based off of previous expansions and previous things that had happened in the lore. Burning Crusade was actually the conclusion to the story, The Wrath of the Ancients trilogy, written by Richard A. Knack, which was a best-selling trilogy, and it was written before World of Warcraft came out. Wrath of the Lich King was based off of the Warcraft 3 expansion pack, Frozen Thrones. Cataclysm was the conclusion to a story that had been happening throughout the entire expanse of all three of these games and all the novels. All of these were heavily lore-based. Even though it passed a lot of people by, the stories that these expansions were based off of were solid and good. Then they introduced Jack Black. Of course it didn't introduce Jack Black, but the Mists of Pandaria expansion was a questionable choice for the developers, in my opinion, just because the comparison was going to be made, and they knew it was going to. And they didn't help themselves by introducing the new race class combination, Pandaren Monk. I can only think of so many ways of saying Kung Fu Panda. Now, a lot of you are saying, Ben, the expansion was not based off of Jack Black's Pixar award-winning movie Kung Fu Panda. No, it wasn't. You're right. But the Pandaren brewmasters that were part of the Warcraft trilogy were meant as a joke. They were meant as good-spirited travelers that were only in it for the beer. While you could argue that yes, it did have roots in the previous games, I would be hard-stretched to find anything more contrived. I digress. World of Warcraft's ability to attract long-term gamers and to keep their attention long enough to basically milk them for their money and their social lives is unparalleled by any other MMORPG. Every MMO on the market right now competes with World of Warcraft whether they want to or not. However, you could argue that World of Warcraft is essentially sealing its own fate with this next expansion, Warlords of Draenor. At time of recording this, the current offer stands that anyone who pre-orders Warlords of Draenor instantly gets a level 90 character boost. Any character that the player has made can instantly be turned into a level 90, which is max level right now. Blizzard, there are better ways to get people to not play your game. Most developers, when confronted with this problem, usually just stop making the game. And rumors have been heard of offers going out by Blizzard to make this a regular deal, not just for the pre-order of Warlords of Draenor. And if those rumors prove true, after the expansion comes out, anytime the player wants to get a level 90 character, they merely have to pay a fee. Bullshit. I've been playing World of Warcraft for almost 9 years now. I could say that I am very dedicated to the franchise in itself. I am a very dedicated Blizzard gamer. I support a lot of what they do. It's a very good company. However, sometimes you have to just stop and say, what the fuck? I would love to have been in the board meeting where someone shouted out this idea and nobody immediately slapped him in the face. How can anyone think this is a good idea? World of Warcraft is a subscription-based service. Why on earth would you want people to skip to the end? That doesn't make any sense. I am not saying that I know how to run a business better than Blizzard. I'm not saying that at all. If I tried to run a business, I would probably run it into the ground. However, this is just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree. If you guys have arguments, give me a shout out in the comments below. I would love to hear you guys' opinions on this. Thank you as always, guys, for tuning in. YouTube, have a great night.